in the quiet hum of all those servers, in that endless, insane flow of data that we create every single day, something is definitely stirring. We've built these machines that learn, that can adapt, that literally predict our next move. I mean, we've created machines that, for all intents and purposes, seem to think. But here's the real question, right? The one that's sitting right there on the edge of science and, well, philosophy. And it's actually a pretty simple one. Do they feel? Could a machine ever actually experience the world, with all its beauty and sorrow, the same way that we do? And that single question, that's what this is all about today. We're going to dive into one of the most profound and, frankly, mind-bending topics of our time, AI, and this enduring enigma of consciousness. All right, so before we can even try to answer that monster of a question, we've got to pull something apart first. There's this really crucial distinction that gets lost in all the hype, and that's the massive difference between intelligence and awareness. Okay, so let's really break this down. On one side of the coin, you've got intelligence. I'm talking raw power, the ability to process information, spot patterns, solve crazy complex problems. AI is getting absolutely brilliant at this stuff. But then, on the other side, you have awareness, and that's that internal movie that's playing in my head right now as I'm talking, and in your head as you're listening. It's the feeling of the chair you're in, right? The taste of that coffee you had this morning. It's that impossible to describe experience of just being you. And yeah, these two things, they are not the same at all. Okay, so let's keep that distinction front and center, processing versus feeling. With that in mind, let's get a really clear picture of the AI landscape as it is today. Where are we right now? And where is all of this possibly heading? So the best way to think about AI is on a kind of spectrum. Where we are today, right now, is in the era of ANI, or Artificial Narrow Intelligence. These are the systems that are total masters of one single task. Think about ChatGPT spitting out text, or AlphaGo just destroying the game of Go. The next big jump, which is still totally hypothetical by the way, is AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence. That's a machine that's just as smart and adaptable as a person. And then, way out there in the theoretical future, is SAI, or Superintelligence. We're talking an intellect that would blow past all human capabilities combined. It's a lot to think about. So here's the really crucial takeaway for now. For all their amazing power, today's AIs are playing in a pretty small sandbox. They don't have any self-awareness. They can't just wake up and set their own goals or decide they want to learn the violin. They are basically incredible mirrors reflecting the patterns in the data we feed them. But it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could that reflection ever develop a mind of its own? Could it ever become more than just a mirror? And trying to answer that question, well, it means we run headfirst into this wall that philosopher David Chalmers calls the hard problem. And honestly, this is the absolute heart of the whole mystery. It's not about mapping what the brain is doing, it's about explaining why all that activity creates a feeling, why it feels like anything at all to be you. Let's put it this way. You've got the so-called easy problems, and just for the record, they are not easy. They're incredibly difficult for neuroscientists, but they're about mechanics. How do neurons fire? How does your brain process vision or tell your legs to walk? We can map all that stuff. But the hard problem, that's the real mystery. It's the why. Why does all that buzzing electrical and chemical activity create the rich, subjective experience of seeing the color red or feeling that little pang of sadness? Why isn't it all just, dark in there? Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine a robot that can play a Chopin nocturne flawlessly. I mean, perfect technical skill, hitting every single note with the exact timing and volume to make us feel something. It can perfectly replicate the sound of beauty, but does the machine actually feel that beauty? Is there anything it's like to be that robot hearing that melancholy melody? Or is there just nothing? Is it just code running? And that image, that robot playing Chopin, it leads us right to the ultimate question. This is the one that's jumped right off the pages of science fiction and into serious, real-world debates in labs all over the globe. Could a machine ever actually wake up? Now, there are really compelling arguments on both sides of this. On the for side, you have people like physicist Max Tegmark, and the idea here is that consciousness isn't some kind of magic spark. It could just be an emergent property. Think about it like a flock of birds, right? There's no leader, but together, they create these incredibly complex, beautiful patterns. Maybe, just maybe, consciousness is like that. It just arises when a system gets complex enough. But then, the counter-argument is just as strong. Maybe consciousness isn't just about crunching information. Maybe it actually requires a specific biological substrate. You know, the wet, messy, organic stuff our brains are made of. From this point of view, a machine running on silicon could only ever be a perfect simulation. It would be what philosophers call a philosophical zombie. It would act conscious, it would talk like it's conscious, but inside, there'd be no one home. The ultimate actor, playing to an empty theater. And this brings us to a really critical point, because whether an AI ever feels anything or not, its raw intelligence is already becoming powerful enough to put all of humanity at this massive fork in the road. I mean, the promise is just incredible, right? AI could help us cure diseases, fix climate change, give every single person on Earth a personalized education. But the peril? It's just as staggering. We're talking about the risks of a superintelligence that doesn't share our values, massive job displacement, and, yeah, autonomous weapons. When the stakes are that high, the whole conversation has to shift, doesn't it? It stops being about what we can build and starts being about what we should build. As the creators of all this, a pretty immense responsibility is landing right on our shoulders. So what's the game plan? How do we handle this? Well, the path forward seems to require a three-part approach. First step is governance. We have to figure out how to align AI's goals with our human values. That's non-negotiable. Second is adaptation. We've got to invest in education, in reskilling, to get society ready for the huge economic shifts that are coming. And finally, awareness. That one's on all of us. We have to get better at thinking critically about how AI is influencing our lives, day in and day out. You know, as we build these smarter and smarter systems, it's like we're being forced to look into a giant mirror. This whole quest, it's not really just about understanding machines anymore. It's about understanding ourselves. Maybe the final frontier isn't out there in space, but right in here, in our own minds. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with the questions that really, truly matter. Let's start with this one. Just think about it for a second. If a machine can know every single fact in the world, but feel absolutely none of it, what does it even mean to truly understand something? And then, let's flip it. What if we actually succeed? What if one of these machines does wake up? If it can experience joy or suffering or feel lonely, what do we owe it then? Does it deserve rights? Is it our property? Or is it our peer? And all of that, it leads to the final, biggest question, the one that's going to define our future. When the minds that we build can not only think and decide, but maybe, just maybe, one day even dream, what's our role in that world? What does humanity do then? You see, the story of AI isn't finished, not even close. And right now, we're the ones holding the pen.